It's the first week of June, and even though the elderflowers have been flowering for quite a few weeks now, we're only just getting round to making our elderflower cordial. And last year we had to go around looking, we had to go around foraging for elderflower bushes to get enough elderflowers to make a cordial. But this year we actually got an elderflower at the bottom of our garden, so let's go there and start harvesting them. We try to harvest flower heads that are fully open but haven't started to go over yet. Using scissors instead of snapping the flower heads helps to preserve as much of the pollen as possible. We don't weigh how many flower heads we collect, we just get enough to fill our basket. We take the elderflowers into the kitchen and start separating the flowers from the thicker green stems. I use the back of a fork for this, but Amy prefers to pick the flowers off by hand. Just do whatever technique works best for you. The thin green stems close to the flowers are fine to leave in. Here are the unwanted green stems. You can put these back underneath the elderflower bush or compost them. And here are the flowers that we'll use to flavour the cordial. This recipe uses 2 to 3 unwaxed lemons. I just slice them up like this. You'll also need a kilogram of sugar and 50 grams of food-grade citric acid. Add the sugar, citric acid and lemons to 2.5 litres of water in a big saucepan. Bring it to the boil while stirring to fully dilute the sugar and citric acid. Once the liquid is boiling, the elderflowers can be added. Push them under the surface, give them a stir and bring the liquid back to the boil. As soon as it comes back to the boil, the lid can go back on and the saucepan can be taken off the heat. At this point, we leave the cordial to cool fully. We actually leave it for about 24 hours to cool, but you probably don't need to leave it quite that long. The next day, we strain the cordial through a strainer to remove the flowers and lemons. The flowers hold on to quite a bit of cordial, so you can squeeze some of this out with a masher. We then pass the cordial through a muslin cloth. This removes the finer sediment and any small bugs that were living on the flowers. I don't know how long the cordial in this recipe will store for, but I like to sterilise the jars and heat the cordial before bottling to try and extend the life of it as much as possible. Last year we were drinking our elderflower cordial for about 6 months before we ran out, and it still tasted the same as the day we made it. I put the glass bottles in the oven on 120 degrees Celsius for about 15 minutes. The seals go in a pan of boiling water for a few minutes. I also bring the cordial back to the boil for a few minutes. The hot cordial gets poured into the bottles while they're still quite hot. This prevents the bottles from cracking due to heat shock. As long as the cordial and bottles are about the same temperature, the bottles won't crack. I then seal the bottles. I always like to turn the bottles upside down for a few seconds in the hope that any spoilage organisms will be killed by the hot and acidic cordial. The elderflower cordial can then be enjoyed fresh or stored for a little while. It's best to store it somewhere cool, either in the fridge or maybe a cool cupboard.